Hi friends, this is your pal Scott Garibay, and today we're going to talk about the state of 3D printing in Dungeons and Dragons. All right, so I recently went to two conventions that featured Dungeons and Dragons content, right? And at the second one I went to, I got to see no less than 8 vendors, all who had 3D printed material. So we have arrived, and we have arrived at a point where a bunch of guys in every state, maybe a few ladies, are firing up their 3D printers and printing everything under the sun. Just all kinds of different stuff, all kinds of scopes, and 3D printing has finally fully arrived. All right, so let's talk about it. And what is this? So, every year they do a State of the Union and the president comes out and gives a State of the Union. I want to give a state of 3D printing for Dungeons and Dragons today. All right, so let's jump into this. So first of all, where is it? It's not very far. So here's the thing. You can print anything you want, right? And you can get pretty good definition, right? For a reasonable price and a reasonable printer, okay? And so you can get almost any fig you want, and you can get and actually, you know what? Let's talk about the price. The price is not very reasonable. They're pretty expensive, right? Because the resin is pretty expensive, and only a few people can do this. You need to know what you're doing. You need to have a passion for Dungeons and Dragons, and you need to be patient, and you need space, right? And that's not easy, right? Organizing and doing something at length is not easy at all. And so there's not a lot of people who can do this, but there are a few, right? And it is guys in their basement and in their garage, right? That is happening, and not probably 100 plus in every state, right? So I'd say 10 to 100 guys in every state on the coasts are printing at this point, right? But how much they're charging? I saw regular figures at $8, right? For one regular figure. And frankly, if you just get bones at any FLGS, you're going to get better, and you're going to get cheaper, right? So anything these 3D printer guys are doing, you can get better quality from bones. And the other thing is you're well, could I get something really unique or fresh or better or stylistically better from them? I don't think the answer is yes. I really don't. And so the reality is it's arrived and a ton of guys are printing, but it's just gray putty being sold by some dude who's working in his garage on the weekends. It doesn't feel good. It doesn't feel fresh, and it doesn't feel unique, right? And here's the kicker. I think there's a stigma, right? They can't really produce better prices than you would get for bones, right? Or let's talk about it, right? D&D has its own line of miniatures, right? And it's I think it's Nolzur's, Marvelous Miniatures, and that's an official D&D line, and there's hundreds of figures. There's just virtually nothing you need there's no lack of supply from official realsies suppliers, right? So I don't really feel that they're really filling a gap. The other issue is the elephant in the room is 28 millimeter dead, and I think the answer is yes. And the reason why is now that we have official Lego Dungeons and Dragons miniatures, official Lego Dungeons and Dragons terrain, there's no need for these 28 millimeter things. Are just worthless junk, right? Who needs a skeleton that has a sword in his hand and then another skeleton that has a hammer in his hand, right? And the reason why is just go get yourself a skeleton from Lego. You could have it in black, you can have it in red, you can have it in white. You could put a hammer in the right hand and a sword in the left hand, and halfway through the game you could switch them, and you could put a shield, right? And you could put a hat, and you could put a cape, right? And none of this can be done with 28 millimeter, right? So the reality is so this is my take. The state of 3D printing in 2025, at the beginning of 2025 for D&D, is that there's a bunch of guys sitting in their garage printing up a bunch of gray sludge, and really not and trying to defeat a wave of fantastic product from Bones and from WizKids, and they're not beating them. They're not beating them on price. They're not beating them on quality. They're not beating them on variety. It's completely unneeded, and the entire 28 millimeter market is in trouble because Lego is here. So to me, I feel like the state of 3D printing, and there's a stigma for it. It just feels icky. Like, you're like, why don't I just go buy from a real company? I don't need this guy's printed junk, right? Like, and so that's my take. I really feel like the state of 3D printing for Dungeons and Dragons in 2025 is just a bunch of gray, sloppy junk being printed by a bunch of dudes in their basement, and it feels icky to buy from them, and all of it is unneeded. That's my take. Every single word you just heard is my humble opinion. Absolutely nothing more, absolutely nothing less. The important part is when I get to hear your humble opinion when you get in the comments and send your traffic. Please consider like subscribing and have a fetch millennium.